Hello and welcome to the It's Your Time show with me, your host, Abigail Barnes. I am so excited that we get to hang out for the next 30 minutes with my special guest this week, Lucienne Shakir. Let me tell you a little bit about Lucienne before we go into some questions with her. As you are joining us, let us know where you are joining from. If you are joining on replay, let us know that you're here on the replay. So you are with us live stream. You might also be listening to this on the podcast, which is so exciting. So if you have any questions about anything, just put them in the chat or you can email us. All the links are in the show notes. So as I said, welcome to the It's Your Time show with me, Abigail Barnes. Each week we are bringing you transformational stories from entrepreneurs and professionals around the world who are sharing their life-changing experiences to give you proof of what's possible after adversity, as well as inspiring and motivating you to take control of your time and take action on your dreams. So today, as I said, I am joined by Lucienne Shakir. She is the founder of Lucienne Coaching, the creator of the Collective of Extraordinary Women, a membership program. She is also the host of That's What She Said podcast. And Lucienne is a master accredited coach on a mission to empower 1 million women to start, run, and grow brilliant businesses and live a life they love. Lucienne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure and honor, I have to say, to be here. So thank you for that introduction.
You are so welcome. So as I said, as you're joining us, just let us know where you're joining from, because we absolutely love to know who is here with us live. But without further ado, Lucienne, the question I love to start off this show with is asking people what their 4-year-old self was like. Because in my head, I really think that when we're 4, with no inhibitions, we just, we believe the world is made out of marshmallows and sunshine and lollipops. So what was 4-year-old Lucienne like?
Wow. I love this question because my lucky number is 4. So that's just brilliant. And I think I do remember quite a bit of being 4. I think that's kind of where my memories begin. I think my earliest memory is about that age, actually. And I was either up a tree or in a field, in a river, probably with my wellies on, adventuring. I was being flown backwards and forwards from Germany because my parents were separating, and I used to get to go with British Airways with my little Sky Flyers badge, and I'd be collected by one parent and grandparents on one side and delivered on the other. And I think I had a boyfriend at that time as well. I think I had somebody who I held hands with, the person that was my partner in the queue at primary school. We'd have to line up to go in. Stuart, his name is still somebody that I know. And I was just passionate about doing whatever I wanted to do, which I think we all are when we're 4, really. Like, there was no reason why I couldn't do something. It was just do it.
I absolutely love that. And I can see, let's just go. We're on it. So as you were growing up then, what did success mean to you in your life?
Wow. I don't think I really ever took the time to look at what success meant personally, on a personal level. I think I simply stepped into the treadmill of academia, going to university, doing a master's, went into teaching. My mum's a teacher, my grandfather was a professor, and it was really kind of instilled that culture, that academic culture. And so I did it without really thinking. I went to university without really thinking about it, took on the student debt without really thinking about it. And success for me, probably in my early 20s, was about achieving high success academically. And I actually stepped out of doing a PhD. So I started a PhD and I stepped out of it very recently because I wanted to focus on the business. Obviously, we had COVID, so I couldn't go in and do a lot of the research that I wanted to do. But actually, I realised that I was just looking for the rubber stamp of approval from others, from external parties. And that was a big learning curve for me in what I was doing. So when I became a mum, I would say that success then became about survival and keeping my son alive and keeping myself alive. My marriage failed, and so success then became about making sure that I had a good relationship with my son's dad, so that my son was, had a close connection with his father, which was really important to me. I think at every point of my life, I've had a different idea of what success means. I have been very wealthy. I have also been flat out broke. I know what it's like to be on both sides of that coin, pardon the pun. And I can honestly say I've never been happier or more successful than where I am right now today. And that's just because I'm living a life that I love and I'm not doing anything that I don't want to do, regardless of the financial loss of income, whether it comes to like working in corporate, whether it's not spending a huge amount of money on designer handbags and my wardrobe. I am simply me and present, and it's amazing. That's success now.
Oh, I love that. This is like a masterclass in itself. So if you're listening to this, please take notes, because what Lucienne is describing is something that is many, many years of lots of different paths and avenues. And I know this because the more people I speak to about it, it comes up again and again. I tried this, it didn't work. I tried that, it didn't work. And when I tuned into XYZ now, and that's not to say that, money and these things aren't important. They are cash fund streams, but it's to say, like, work out what you're prioritizing, when you're prioritizing it, how you're prioritizing it, and then sort of learn to live and to enjoy it, but also tapping into who you are in that journey.
Yeah, and I love money. Like, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love it. But I love it when it comes to me and it flows to me in a way that I feel is in alignment with who I am. So if it's a paycheck in employment where I'm never really going to make much of an impact, it doesn't mean that much to me. If it's because of a partner or a husband or a family member who's very wealthy, it's not really energetically mine. And so where I am now is creating wealth for myself that is my wealth, that comes from my energy, and I absolutely love it. But if you'd have played that to me 5 years ago, that I'd be sat here saying I love money, I'd have probably been a little bit sick in a bag, because I didn't talk like that. You don't talk like that. In my family, you don't talk about loving money. That's not what you do. So yeah, there's definitely been a massive shift in the last 5 years.
I love that. And that's the journey. And we're going to get to sort of your pivotal story in a minute about how suddenly you went from one thing to another thing. But before we get on to that $1 million question, can you think of anybody who influenced your journey throughout sort of your life and growing up? Because I often think that these times where it, like, people would say, it was good luck, but it is these people who suddenly can change everything.
So I am always analysing everyone I meet. I'm always analysing my existing relationships. I'm always questioning, the purpose of what's happening, whether or not people around me are bar boosters or bar drainers, in terms of, if you think about yourself as a battery, really. And growing up, I've definitely been inspired by my mum. I think my mum has been a really pivotal inspiration in what I've looked to and towards, in terms of how intelligent she is, how she conducts herself with her peers, and the work that she does in female empowerment herself, and in theatre, and all of that stuff. But I also use her as a barometer for how I want to live my life, because my mum had me very, very young, and quite often I would find myself wanting to impress her and aiming to be more like her, and that was my lens and how I put my lens on things. And so really looking at that a lot closer and a lot deeper, being inspired to not live the life that she has carved out for herself, so that the academic life, the one that I broke away from. But my mum inspires me daily. She's incredibly honest, and we're very good friends apart from anything else. So close to me, it would be my mum. My mum is an inspiration to me. Further away from me, I have to say that Beyonce is my inspiration, because she is somebody. I mean, I'm quite musical. I love music. I love to dance. I love to sing. And Beyonce captures for me something in that entrepreneurial spirit. And you mentioned just now about luck. I don't believe any of it is luck, really. I think we work hard and we create the connections that we need to make, and we double down on what's working and we let go of what's not. And that's hard in its own right. And when I look at Beyonce, a Black woman from Houston, Texas in America, who is globally recognized and is an absolute powerhouse of a businesswoman as well as a performer, I am so inspired by the way she conducts her life, her privacy, her art form, her growth, the different stages that we've seen her go through. And if ever I need a little bit of something, I will listen to Beyonce and I will get into that zone. And the energy is just so incredible. I absolutely love her. So Beyonce is an inspiration, and my mum as well. My mum will love that. She'll be like, yay, I'm an inspiration with Beyonce.
Amazing. Or two great people to have up there, two powerful women. I love that. And it's funny, it was Steve Jobs who said, you can only join up the dots when you're looking back. And I think this is quite pivotal in our lives. We think that in order to get what we've got, we need to take giant leaps every single day. But as you were saying, like, luck is just about continuing to stay in the game, taking a step, and being a nice human. It doesn't mean that Machiavellianly we're building relationships because we know we can get something. It's about understanding that the collective, as the tide rises, so do all the ships, as that saying goes. But yeah, I love it. So let's get to the life-changing experience. You said just now that you were sort of on a path to do a PhD in the world of academia, and now you're running your own business on this mission to empower 1 million women to start their own businesses. Kind of, two sides of the same coin, if you like, but equally polar opposite. What was the pivotal change that sort of meant that you now do what you do?
I was diagnosed with clinical and chronic depression, and I couldn't look after my son. I had to be assisted to the toilet, all of these things. And my body actually shut down. I was walking to get some milk. I had my son in the pram and my legs went from underneath me, and my body had been giving me signs for years that something wasn't quite right. I've gone through, we all have, I've gone through quite a lot to that point where my legs simply stopped functioning and turned to jelly, and I had to sit on the pavement. And I think it was a culmination of ignoring the signs for such a long time that my body just went, no, you're not doing this anymore. Like, I've had enough. I'm shutting you down. This is it. And what happened was a really dark spell in my life where I didn't contemplate suicide, but I certainly didn't want to exist anymore. I wanted to be left alone. I felt like I was a real burden on everybody around me. I was supposed to be this powerhouse of a woman who was achieving great things as I was, and having a son and bouncing back and going straight back into work and all of this stuff. The fact of the matter is I'd ignored the signs for so long. I'd become a mum and my identity had been questioned, basically. And then, of course, my husband became a carer for me for a long period of time. And so that element of, the attraction between us, that began to dwindle over time. And I had to ask myself, as a woman in her late 20s then, so this was about a decade ago, I'm approaching 40. As a woman in her late 20s, was I prepared to continue living like this? Or did I need to make something of my life that didn't rely on my husband, that didn't rely on the fact that I was a mum or, a caregiver to whoever? And so it took a long time, but my main aim was to get out of that bed. My main aim was for them to allow me to go and spend time on my own, which they weren't letting me do. No one was letting me do that because they were worried that I was going to take my life or something like that along those lines. And so my daily drive became proving to everybody that I was strong enough and that I was okay enough to be able to just go and spend a weekend in Scotland or something just on my own. And obviously that being my drive pulled me out of the situation that I was in. And then when I was well enough to go and do things on my own, I wasn't contemplating not being here anymore. So it got me out of it. But when I look back, I would never change that. I would have that experience again to be where I am today. Because if I hadn't had that experience, I would be waking up at a certain time every day, coming home at a certain time every day, feeling frustrated with the education system and not actually living a life that I loved. And so it was necessary. It was awful, but it was absolutely necessary, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And what I want to do is make sure that people don't have to break down before they realize how important it is for them to live a life that they love. And I know that you've had an incident in your life where, things have been made very clear to you and it's taken you time to recover. And I think when we do have those near-death experiences, it really does help you to live better when you come out the other side. I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but I really feel that that's the case.
So first of all, thank you so much for the vulnerability in sharing your own story. I know for a fact that there will be people who will listen to this, if not live, on the replay for many years to come, and you have given them permission to reevaluate, to question everything. Because when one person shares their story, it changes lives in a ripple effect. So thank you so much. And we talk about wanting more transparency. We talk about wanting more honesty, and it only comes from sharing our stories and being more out there and being more open. And yes, on the first episode of the show, I shared my story and how sort of going from, being this high-flying career woman who was just, I don't know, looking for the answers in all the wrong places, to then sort of begging with the creator of all that is for a second chance. There's nothing like the actual, okay, so there is an exit to all of this. Yeah, there is an exit to all of it. It's almost like that unsaid thing that we don't talk about. It's like, there's only one way we're all going to go out, and that's out of the exit. So there's only one thing that we do while we're still here, and that is to enjoy the journey, to enjoy the opportunities, and to really embrace failure, this quote unquote word, and see it as feedback, see it as learning. Because if we knew what to do, we'd already be doing it. And if we don't do it because we might fail, then nothing in our life is ever going to change. So thank you so much for sharing that, because it then opens up a greater conversation. So if you're joining us, and I can see we've got Somalia in the house, which is so awesome. If you're joining us, wherever you're joining us from in the world, let us know. And if you've got any questions for Lucienne, we'll have time to take a question. But yeah, thank you. So you have this sort of realization, if you like, from the fact of health, and we kind of think that these bodies that we live in just keep going, and that we can just do whatever we want to them, and they'll just keep on responding and keep on working, but they don't. And you've sort of demonstrated that yours didn't, but you're also the proof that after this adversity, things can change. And I guess am that as well, having survived sort of a stroke. So what does life look like today for Lucienne? What's your life purpose now?
So for me, it's to live every day as a person who is in alignment with my values. And my North Star, I do a lot of work with my clients around values. I find it absolutely amazing that so many people will reach retirement, the end of their lives, not really ever knowing what their values are, what that moral compass is for them. There's an education element to this, that there's a difference between values and beliefs. So beliefs are things that we learn, we maybe from our reading, from our peer groups, from our communities, etc., and they're extrinsically built into our minds. But the values, we don't know where they come from, and this is an area of quantum biology, I think, that's going to come in from cellular memory and stuff that I talk about with peers in the academia world that I was talking about before. We don't really know where this navigational compass comes from, but everyone has one. And everyone either aligns with another person or doesn't align with them. There's either friction or there's a connection. And I think in the next couple of 100 years, we'll understand a lot more about how we work in those energetic fields. And so I deeply know what my values are, what my core values are. And my North Star is love. And I know when somebody says that they love something and they actually don't. I know when somebody says that they love you and they actually don't. I feel that the word is bandied around very far too often without the real meaning. And that's because I'm so attuned to love and what that means for me and for the people around me as well. And some people might say, okay, well, love is subjective, right? How we feel, that thing that we feel around love is subjective. I honestly think the essence of our emotions are a commonality in human beings. And I think, okay, the ripple effect of that emotion might be different through the beliefs that we have, but actually the way that you feel the emotion, I think has to be similar in each human being. Okay, we might see colors differently and and we might taste things differently, but I feel like this emotional core is the same. And so if you don't know what your emotional core is, how are you living your life in alignment? You can't. You're going to be confused. You're going to feel like you're not being intuitive. You're going to be up in your head. We are not just what we think. We're who we are as a person. And so if I wake up and I find myself in situations where I'm not living a life that I love, and I don't take that sentence with a pinch of salt, that is a really important part of what I do. I take the time to understand why, what's not working, and I change things. So I will never stay somewhere where I feel like love isn't reciprocated, where my value isn't seen, heard. And it's fascinating to me, really, because I don't think it was until after the nervous breakdown that I actually loved myself. I think so many of us spend so much time condemning who we are in our minds and our thought patterns and not loving ourselves, not liking ourselves. And what the nervous breakdown did was say, you need to love yourself first. Like, that's the first thing that you need to do. And you're not going to do anything until you love yourself. And no one's going to love you properly until you love yourself. And so I've learned to love myself. And the people that I work with, I see them beginning to love themselves. I see them stepping into that empowering feeling. And I wouldn't be there if it hadn't have been for what happened. So know your values is so important. Living in alignment, and the hope that there is in knowing that you can learn about yourself, that there's more information at our fingertips than there's ever been before. There's more opportunity for people to be enlightened than there ever has been before. Take the time to develop personally. You know, you say it's time, it's your time, and it absolutely is, because we don't get this again. So yeah, I'm really, really passionate about knowing your value and asking yourself, are you living in alignment with that? And if not, why not? And at what cost?
Could you just share with us, like, one or all of your core values, just so that people who maybe haven't heard of it might have an idea about what they are?
Excellent. Okay, so I have a set of values in the business where we have empowerment, we have dignity, and we have hope. So when we were talking earlier on, you were talking about, you know, the hopeful message. We need to be bringing a hopeful message, and I couldn't agree more. You know, we talk about sharing from the scar rather than from the wound. You know, as leaders, we have to do that, and that's really, really important. My personal values are love, self-development, and expression, self-expression, being able to express yourself and not feeling condemned for being able to do that. And so the values within the business and the values that I have personally, actually, when you look at them, they're very aligned. They're in alignment. They work as a circle together. And so a lot of the reflective work that we do on a quarterly basis is, how is the activity that we're doing within Lucienne Coaching or within the collective actually feeding the values personally and professionally? Because you've got a different set of personal values to me. Everybody, say I stand on stage in front of, the most I've done this activity with is about 500 people. Do this activity, you pick 10 values, you work down to 3, and then you have 1. There are no 2 people in the room that have the same 3 core values. I've not experienced that yet. It will probably happen, but it's rare. So your core values and my core values are different. But how do they align? And that's what you have to figure out. How do your values align with your business? And I can guarantee that the people who are listening to this, where you've had friction in your life and difficulty, it's been where there has been a real rub against your core values, and it's been very difficult for you to move past because of that.
Yeah, 100%. And where you find yourself compromising them, and just kind of using that life old sentence of, oh, it's okay, I don't really want to do it, but I'll just do it anyway. And yeah, it's a slippery slope. Lucienne, I can't believe that we have come to the end of our time together. That's absolutely flown by, and we could talk for so much longer. But let us know, where is the best place to hang out with you, and what are you working on right now?
Well, we've just set our big goal, the big mission of empowering 1 million women to start, run and grow their businesses. And I've just stepped into that energy, which is amazing. So I think Instagram is probably the place to go. There's a lot of free resources on there that you can find out what's holding you back. The podcast is a great place where you can listen to the common themes that I hear my clients going through, and it's my way of giving back to the community. So guilt, community, purpose, sense of self. So go and take a listen. And that's it, really. The best thing that people can do that are listening is to actually take action on the values exercise that I was talking about, and go away and really do some self-work on that. I think I would prefer that over and above anybody going and downloading a freebie, to be honest.
Amazing. Well, your values are driving the bus. Thank you so, so much for coming on the show today, sharing your story, sharing your wisdom, sharing your insight, and so many tips. I mean, I hope you all had a pen and paper, and it's been so amazing to see you all commenting in the chat. So, as I said, if you watch this on replay, let us know where you're watching it from replay. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat as well, and all of the details for how you can contact Lucienne will be in the comments, the show notes below. So until next time, we will see you next week if you're joining us live for the show again. But if you're listening to this on replay, you might listen to another episode. So until next time, stay safe, stay well, and keep washing your hands.